Let's go check out this massive GMC 1500 Denali. I kind of love the tire in the back, standing upright like that, but just look at how wild this truck is. Now, I'm not like a big aftermarket lifted truck guy, but this thing is pretty sweet. It's got these rhino black hard alloy wheels. Those are just very clean. I'm barely clearing the hood on this. I mean, it's like a full... It's just ridiculous. But it's all well done, great contrast, black and white. I mean, this thing is just crazy. BDS suspension, Fox racing shocks. There you go. Used to race motocross back in the day a little bit, so familiar with those guys. This is just nuts. So per the discussion that we had earlier, all of this aftermarket work, clearly very tastefully done. To somebody, this adds value for sure. But we are not pricing it more than we would otherwise because we understand that not everybody is going to be willing to buy the truck given all that's been done to it. Now, it does look like it has the power side steps. I'm sure that'll help a little bit, but I mean, those are only going to come down to what here? Cool truck. We just adjusted the price on it. It's in the 60s. It's a lot of truck. This is probably many, many thousands of dollars worth of work. The person who owned the vehicle basically lost all of that. They didn't get any of it back on the trade. I can assure you that. We're not asking more money because of it. But if this is somebody's taste, then they're going to get a very heavily modified Sierra Denali. It's actually a 2500. I misspoke. It's not a 1500. It's a 2500. I mean, this is going to be a deal for somebody that loves that. Now, again, not everyone's going to want to climb up into that every day. I'm not sure I would. I feel like getting out of that would be kind of terrifying, to be honest. And it's metallic. I dig it.
Client I sold a GLC, he had the E-Class from us.
Okay.
He wants to get out of the E-Class lease a little bit early. He's still got 23 payments.
It's more than a little bit.
It's going to be ugly. He ultimately wants to get into a C-Class. His main goal is to lower his payment. We already had the pre-combo that's probably not going to happen.
He's only paying $884 on an E-Class.
I know. He's got a great payment.
So is the entire motivation here to lower his payment?
He wants a smaller car also, but the main motivation is lower.
He wants to lower his payment. Yeah, what he's saying to you is I want a smaller car. What he's saying to you is I want to lower my payment.
Maybe it's worth something. I mean, it's 24. It's only got 11,000 miles on it.
It's just a matter of can we make sense of it. He's paying $884.67. He's got 23 payments left, so 20 that we would have to deal with is $17,693.
Not the most negative we've seen, but
we're looking at $7,000 upside down.
It's not so bad.
No, it's not terrible, but remember, on a 3-year lease, that's about $200 a month that we're adding to a payment. So if this trade were out of the equation, going into a C, we could lower his payment very easily. But once we add that $200 a month back in with the negative, at that point, we might end up around where he's paying now. Maybe a little bit less, depending on the right car, but is he wanting to put money down? Is he trying to do a sign and drive?
Nonetheless, though, compared to what I thought I was going to walk into, this is not as bad.
This is where the question is like, what are you looking to accomplish? I want to lower my payment. Okay, lower your payment by how much? Words mean different things to different people. Somebody says, I want to lower my payment. To me, in my head, I'm thinking a couple $100. To somebody else, that could mean $50, 60, 100, I don't know. Doesn't matter if it makes sense to us. It only matters if it makes sense to him. But you just need a little bit more clarification on what exactly are you trying to accomplish. I get smaller car. I hear you there. You say lower your payment. How much do you need to lower it by? Because without that, now you're just going to be lobbing up a bunch of options to him. How about this one? How about this one? How about this one? If he says, I want it to be $500, okay, are you going to be bringing money to the table? No. Well, then mathematically, I won't be able to help you there. Smaller car part of it aside, that's what he's saying. That's not what he's telling you.
Very special arrival. GT63 Motorsports Edition. This is epic looking.
A person that reached out to us on social media in December of last year who had this car.
Now, how many of these did they make? Do you remember?
200.
200 for the whole world?
For the whole world.
Now, this is painted on. Is that my understanding?
Right.
Yeah,
so all painted.
So these stars are painted. They're not stickers. They're not decals. So that's pretty wild when you think about the time and effort that goes into painting something like this as opposed to just a bunch of stickers that you often would see as a decal. It's kind of like a, how did you describe this? Like an aqua teal?
It's like a teal.
Yeah. And this is meant to mimic our Formula One team, the Petronas Formula One team. You can see right here the badge, 1 of 200 Motorsport Collector's Edition.
This is number 1.
This was a $77,000, $77,350 just for that package, the Motorsport Collector's Edition. A lot of it is the paint, as you might expect. It's hard to put a number on a car like this. Let's talk about maybe some more basic modifications, things like wrapping a car.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going over this debate right now with a Range Rover that we have. I like to give people the opportunity to buy it with the wrap.
Right.
However, at least half of the time, the client that wants to buy the car wants it unwrapped first before they continue on. I bought a GT63S a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that car was wrapped. And as soon as I said I was buying it, I ran outside and started peeling the wrap off, and there was a whole entire door that was not painted. Got fixed, was hit somehow. They just primer, wrap, done.
Yeah, so in a situation like that, you could have somebody who's wrapping a car because they just want it to be a different color. You could have somebody that is like, it's damaged, and instead of getting it properly repainted, they're like, just wrap it.
Wrap isn't super easy to take off properly either.
Yeah, it's time consuming.
Correct. It costs us about $1,000 to unwrap a car. To answer the question, does it devalue a car? Not necessarily, but if it's a high mileage car, it's not something that I was confident was wrapped kind of right in the beginning while it was nice, I may have some secondary questions about that car.
And not all wraps are done super well either.
No, at least half of them that come in are not done well. If a wrap is peeling anywhere, or if it looks a little tacky, if it's been on there for longer than 2-3 years, at that point, yes, I'm going to charge you to unwrap it.
Look, I get it. It's a gray area. People think that it's just dealer speak to try to devalue somebody's car. But the reality is, in most cases, aftermarket work will devalue the car simply because of the expense to return back to stock, or the limited buyer pool, or some combination of those two things. In some cases, like you said, depending on what it is, it could add value. And I think that where people get upset is that dealerships then represent the car with the aftermarket work, and they're like, oh, this is the best. I'm confident in saying this, that we don't add money to our asking price of the car based on modifications. If anything, it's going to be below the market, with the understanding that, not unlike a bad Carfax, statistically you have less people that are interested in buying it. You've got to be below other cars to entice somebody.
People are very apprehensive of what's underneath that wrap. What happened if something happened that led you to wrap it, or is it just because it looks cooler this way? I wrap all my cars. I love wrap. My current car's wrapped, but I took a video of the car while it was in the wrap shop all around the body in case I ever sold that car, because most people are going to think, okay, that car's older, got some miles on it, what's that paint look like?
Yeah, people's minds go to the worst possible place, is that they see a wrap, they assume it's trying to cover something, and it very well could just be, no, I wanted to change the color, and that's a very popular reason to do it. With us, if you have aftermarket stuff on your car, it probably will be worth a little bit less, not because we're trying to devalue the car, but because the car's worth less. It's got a smaller pool of potential buyers.
The GLS Maybach, the silver one. So 2 Browns defensive players and 2 different GLS Maybachs.
Nice. We were just talking 3 days ago. We're like, yeah, we got these 2 GLS Maybachs, and now they're both gone to players for the Browns. I love it.
Not mad about that at all. He's trading in his G-Wagon. Honestly, it's not very nice. I'm probably going to wholesale it.
Okay.
It's on aftermarket wheels. It's got body damage everywhere.
Okay.
I don't think it's the right one for us.
Well, there you go. That's social proof if I've ever seen it.
He didn't know that got his because it's still here.
Oh, he didn't know? There's no way.
He didn't. He was in here for service. He asked me about refinancing. I was like, sir, I don't do that here. I put you in a new finance.
I love that. What year was his G?
23.
Oh, that's too bad that it's not nice.
It's really interesting. I think it's either Monza gray or sintered bronze or one of those colors. I'll have to double check. Over red. It's really cool, but he doesn't have the OEM wheels. Body damage all over on that matte paint. It really
Yeah, it's just not worth the time it would take.
Unfortunate, but I'm targeting today a 2,800 mile 2013 Dodge Viper GTS.
Oh, is that the one that we looked at the other day, the black one?
Yeah.
Okay, so auction's ending today.
And I don't know if we get this one just because of the nature of our beast here, but a 2024 two-tone GLS 600 Maybach.
Oh, what two-tone is it?
Iris and Obsidian.
Okay, that's good. What about the interior?
Black.
4-place seating?
Yep.
All right, nice.
But no screen.
What do you mean, no rear entertainment?
Yeah.
What?
I know.
How does that even work?
It doesn't. A little silly, but you know what? That's okay.
Okay, good deal.
Either has horrible credit, or
Why?
because his lease payment is $3,500 a month.
On what?
On his GLE 63 24.
Maybe he rolled a bunch of negative.
He must have. His hybrid number is like $114,000.
What's his payoff?
Dealer payoff is $116,832. He's got 13 payments times 34, 13.02. It's got $44,369 in lease payments.
Is the car here?
Yeah, it's up front. I put pictures in there. It's super nice. Brakes are good. It will need 4 tires, but it's super clean.
Got it.
He's trying to lower his payment. He got quoted an E53 for $2,600 a month. Didn't want to do that because he didn't want a plug-in hybrid.
Why?
He said it's stupid. His wife hated it.
What's stupid about it?
He didn't like it. He's like, I don't want to have to worry about a battery. I'm like, you don't. He's like, I'm not going to be convinced on it. I said, okay.
All right, good spec, Alpine. Problem is that the car's worth like $83,890, and you're saying payoff's like $114 essentially. Well, that's about 31 grand in negative equity that we got to deal with, which is $900 a month. So what's he looking at?
His wife wants an S-Class.
Well, I mean, that's gonna lower his payment, but not by a lot.
lot.
$5,000 down.
48 months, he's at $27.89. Lowers your payment by $800.
Do we get that bought with $5 down?
Don't know. Really don't. Loan to value is 120.4%. So, assuming his credit is good to go, we should be fine. We're underneath the parameters.
Can you run me the white on red as well?
29 hunch.
10,000 miles a year?
Yep. You got it, dude.
Whether it's my videos or anybody else's videos online, the aftermarket debate always comes up where consumers believe that dealers always say that aftermarket work done to your car devalues it. But then when they list that car for sale, they use it as a selling feature and try to ask for more money for the car because of it. Now, I've always argued that in most cases, aftermarket work done to a car does devalue it because most people that are looking to buy that car want it to be stock. They get nervous about modifications and or the modifications don't suit their personal style.
Absolutely.
Which means that you really limit your buying pool. However, if you have somebody that's interested in the car, as a salesperson, you're going to sell the benefits of the work that was done, assuming that you've got somebody who is expressing interest in it. So where do you think the disconnect is here? Do aftermarkets generally devalue a car? And does that get reflected then in its price?
Generally speaking, yes, but there's a big but here. Depends on what kind of car it is, what was done, and where it was done. I'll give you an example. Certain cars, especially BMWs, they'll do turbos, they'll do some cosmetic stuff. The reality of it is you've taken half of your pool of people who are interested in that car and just made them go away.
Because they're not comfortable.
Correct. If there's ever a problem, and I'm friends with some people who own speed shops or aftermarket shops that make cars faster, right? That's all they do. Work on cars to make them fast. There's nothing worse to those guys than going in and finding a problem on someone else's work, right? So if that car came here from Texas, North Carolina, wherever it came from, and someone buys it locally or someone buys it from Texas and Florida, you can't go back to that shop and say, here, fix my car. You're going to have to ship it there, have them evaluate it. You have no idea what you're paying for to fix it, and then ship it back to you. I mean, those are massive expenses. I've seen cars come in modified that are not, at least for a dealership, fixable. Now, in a car like an NSX, that's a one of 350 NSX Types. There's one or two companies that can do the mods on them. They all use the same parts. I'm not afraid of that car because there's only a couple people who can work on it anyway. Did I eliminate the pool of people who are interested in an extremely unique collector's car? Absolutely. But that one's already got more miles than the rest of them out there. So it's for the driver. It's not for a collector. If the car had 1,000 miles on it and it had the turbos done and it had the exhaust done and the intake done and all that stuff, completely different story.
Would you have been less interested, do you think, at that point?
Way less interested because I know that the person selling that would want all the money in the world for it, and you know, justifiably so. However, most people that will call in and ask about that car with less than 1,000 miles on it are going to put it away and watch it appreciate.
He texted me. I haven't been able to get a hold of him for a couple of weeks, but he finally reached back out today.
Yeah.
He wanted to see the price difference between the 450 and the 350, but we don't have any white 450s.
Okay, we can always find him one.
That's what I'm going to tell him. So I was thinking either just show him the 350 I saved or use one of the 450s we have in stock as like an example of what that may kind of be.
No. We've talked about this. Find a car that he would buy. We price that out. We don't use examples of things that he won't buy to replicate something that he would buy.
Yeah, I figured just easy just to show him the 350, show him what the actual MSRP differences usually will be like, and then we can find him one and see if that actually works for him to go up in the price for it. It should be the white 350 I just saved today. 12K miles a year. 10K is just $20 less, right?
Depends on the term. On a 3-year lease, it's $20. On a 4-year lease, it is like 15.
So 15 to $20 difference, I'll tell him.
Does he have fleet?
I tried to get a hold of him and ask him that. He hasn't responded since this morning, so we'll just leave it off for now, and I'll let him know that can't save him some money.
10K at signing?
Show him 5, 10, and 15.
On a lease? 5, 10, and 15.
Only because I tried to ask him about that too, because last time I talked to him, he was going to finance the car, put 17.5 down.
Well, people will put different money down on a
That's
lease
why I was
than
going to
a
say, just
purchase.
show him 5 as a standard, or 10, I guess is the most I think would be fair to show him.
I'll do 5, 75, 110.
That's probably good.
Does he have a car from us now?
No, this is a walk-in I took like 2 months ago. He's been really busy. He's finally getting to it.
Okay. Alrighty.
This is an interesting peek behind the curtain. Adam, now, this is what, month 3 technically?
Yeah.
That you've been in this chair. You've been doing a fantastic job. I just want to be on the record of saying that. You really have. You have been dialed in to the live market pricing, which for those that don't know, I'm not going to blanket statement the industry here because there are some operators that are really focused on this and others that aren't. I remember working with people at times in my career where it's like the car came in, it got listed for sale, and then it was like kind of on to the next thing, and it might be like 45 days later, and they hadn't even given it a second look.
Or the old start real high, and maybe someone who's been looking for them will see it and they'll buy it for all the money.
Yeah, there are a lot of stores out there that still operate in that way, where it's like they list it for sale. It's a traditional negotiating-based environment, so somebody reaches out, you go back and forth a little bit, you try to land on a number, and now the problem with that is that if somebody doesn't reach out, then a lot of time goes by, you've forgotten about the car. In the background, it's depreciating, you haven't updated your price, you're not getting any leads on it, and now you're in a position where you're probably going to lose a bunch of money. So what we do here is constant adjustments to the market, because I believe, and I know you do too, that if we have a car for sale, days go by, no one raises their hand and says, I'm interested, something's got to change, whether it's the photos or the description or the price, because to expect that just magically one day we change nothing and all of a sudden somebody comes in and buys it, that's a little bit wishful thinking. So you're in here how often?
Every day. So every day I will look to see what cars haven't had a price change in 7 days, and that gives me the opportunity to make sure the pictures are there and good, make sure that the descriptions are solid, make sure that the cars are represented properly. I'll use it as an opportunity to A, check and make sure that it's merchandised properly, and B, reprice it. Every car, every 7 days will get repriced.
So you've got 41 cars that haven't been touched in 7 days.
Yeah, and of that list, 20% of them are pending sale, so those are offline but still in the system because they're not paid for yet. And then a couple of unique things that are kind of laying around, like some box trucks and things like that, where the pricing's relatively static.
Right, exactly.
But I'll go through here and I'll click at each and every one of these just to make sure that we're representing these cars well. And I catch a lot on here, not even from the pricing side of things, but hey, this car looks like this and it shouldn't. This car is represented this way and it shouldn't be. Oh, hey, more of these hit the market recently, and that gives me a real opportunity to go in and catch those things.
This is a wild curve monitor, by the way. I think this is even bigger than the one I got.
Yeah, this is big.
How wide is this?
49 inches.
Wow. Dude.
Stolen out of my brother's pickup truck. He didn't need it as much as I did.
This is absolutely wild.